Welcome back to the podcast League of Inches or video, however you're listening or watching this episode. Got a special episode today, a joined player interview special that we often run, and it's Trent Hodkinson this time, which I know every footy fan knows, one of the kindest souls in the game, still goes around and is promoting the game, helps the kids, all that. He's so easy to talk to. Great bloke. I'm going to embarrass him quickly with a couple of stats from his career. 174 NRL games, 20 tries, 294 goals, 16 field goals. He's was known for this. We're going to talk about this shortly. 684 points. Rep footy. He had one game for City Origin and also 6 games for New South Wales with a try, which we will get to as well. Trent, just first, when you look at those, I don't want to embarrass you too much, but you must be pretty proud of yourself looking back on the career you've had.
Yeah, for sure, mate. First of all, thanks for having me on, mate. Stoked to be here. And look, those stats are great. I mean, I would have liked to play a few more games and hang around the game for a bit more, but unfortunately, I missed a couple of seasons there through injury and then ultimately had to retire because of injury as well. But I look back at that now and I'm pretty grateful for the time I had. I got to experience some pretty cool games. I was lucky enough to co-captain a grand final alongside James Graham for the Bulldogs and play State of Origin. And I was lucky to play with some great players along the way and, kick some goals. And although I didn't score too many tries, I'd like to think I set a few more up. And I didn't mind a field goal either. So all in all, stoked with the career and yeah.
It is something that we'll talk about later, and unfortunately was crippled by a couple of injuries there, and as you said, cut short. I think personally you could have been playing even to this day. There's I think a few clubs that are screaming out for a quality halfback that probably would have loved to have you on the books at the moment. So out of the clubs, before we get into things that you have played for, is there a club that holds a special place in your heart, or you basically you love all three that you played for?
Yeah, look, I obviously am very thankful to Manly. They gave me my opportunity to debut as a young fella, and I have some fond memories back then, especially my debut season in 2010. But I then went on to the Bulldogs and spent most of my time there. And if I look back at my career now, it'd definitely be, Bulldogs would be somewhere that I'd call home, and who I'd shout for these days because like I said, I spent most of my time there and I played in some good games there, grand final, and I was lucky enough to represent my state along the way, and that was all because of the football I was playing at the Bulldogs, and the teammates I had and the coaches I had at the time was pretty special. So it'd have to be the Doggies, mate.
Yeah, no, I had a feeling you might have said that one. So good to see he's signing a few players at the moment. So that salary sombrero's coming out. Look,
Yeah,
let's talk about your junior footy. I know your club was Cabramatta Two Blues, and I was a trainer for Wentworthville Magpies for a few years with the kids. And I know one
yeah.
thing is anytime Cabramatta was on the draw, they were absolutely dreading it. There was some big boys there, so that must have been for yourself a pretty good stepping stone into what was to come.
It was, mate. It was a good club, Cabra. We had they had a pretty strong junior system there, and a lot of my teammates at the time, I also went to school with out at Westfield Sports, Fairfield there. So we spent a lot of time playing footy together at school, and then it transitioned into on the field out in Cabramatta. So we had those nice combinations, which were pretty good. But in saying that, we had some big battles. I think it might have been Guildford, Timmy Menna. Was playing there with his brother Johnny. There was the Greystanes, Devils were really strong in our age group, so we had a few big battles with those guys, and it was a very strong comp, the Parramatta comp. So I was a Campbelltown junior, but I made the move over to the Parramatta comp because I thought it would be best for my football, especially at the same time because I was very close to going to St Greg's out in Campbelltown there where I grew up, but I made the transition over to Westfields purely because I was playing a few representative teams in primary school, and I was playing alongside the guys from the Parramatta comp that were playing for Cabra and the likes of those teams. So yeah, sort of based myself over in the Parramatta region.
Yeah, and then obviously Parramatta came knocking to sign you up as a junior. Played your SG Ball, Harold Matts, and the NYC competition. I spoke to a number of players who were around the NYC competition and said it was probably the best times of their footy career. They absolutely loved that competition, being a kid, basically mirroring up with the NRL side and some of your heroes growing up. Talk to us about being a kid, then going into that Parramatta system and through the grades, enjoying that time.
Yeah, so Parramatta was a really strong club. Para and Penrith were kind of the big clubs out there that had a lot of talent on their books, and yeah, I was lucky enough to play Harold Matts. I think my age group it dropped. I think it dropped down to our age group at the time, Harold Matts, and then it went back up. So we actually got 2 years of Harold Matts. So it was pretty cool. And then we went up to the SG Ball. We won the Matts competition against Penrith, and then I think the year after we lost it to Penrith again. In return, and then we went up to SG Ball. We had a pretty solid team again. We had Hainsey, Timmy Mena, Chris Keating was in the team at the time. We had a lot of other guys. Tony Williams was there as well, so we had quite a strong team. And yeah, we went on to the finals there. I can't remember where we got knocked out. It might have been the semi or the GF. And then, yeah, went into the 20s competition. And the first year that came into fruition was my age group. So it was very exciting for us, to mirror, as you said, the NRL and follow them around and play the NRL teams as well. So it was pretty cool, but it was disappointing for myself. You said before you were a trainer at Wenny, and I remember we had a trial match the first year of the 20s against Cronulla. And I was supposed to have the week off, and there was a couple other halves that were fighting for the 5'8" position that were supposed to play, and they got injured at training, and we didn't really have any halves, so I had to put the boots on and play that trial match, and that was the one that sort of hit me for the rest of my career. I went on, and in 10 minutes into the trial match, I did my knee. So I ruptured my ACL when I was 18, and that was against Cronulla, as I said, out at Wenny. And yeah, it wasn't ideal. So I sat out for most of that 20s season and come back, I think, round 26, and then played a finals game. And then I think we were one shy of the GF that year. But I think the inaugural winners of that might have been Canberra, if my memory is correct. But yeah, the 20s comp was very exciting for the young guys coming through. Yeah, give them a good opportunity.
Yeah, I think it was Canberra, because I'm pretty sure it was a guy I went to school with, Jared Kennedy. He actually scored the match winner. I remember watching on TV, and everyone was going crazy about it. So shout out to you, Jazz, if you're watching somewhere. Just on that, being a Parramatta junior then coming through, was it a bit disappointing for you to not have played NRL level for the Eels? Was it something that you wanted to do, or you didn't really mind?
No, I definitely wanted to sort of go up the ranks at my junior club. You always want to play for the team that you went through the junior footies, played your junior footy with, and I saw myself sort of wanting to stay there. And as you do, you dream of being a one club player. But I guess we just had a lot of strength in my position up above me at the time. We had Timmy Smith. He come off that really strong rookie of the year season. Everything he touched turned to gold. We had Brett Finch in at 5'8" there. We had James Maloney playing Premier League. I was one under him. So we're pretty strong there. And James at the time went down to Melbourne, and then I took off to the opportunities at Manly. So I would have loved to stay at Para for sure. That was home for me. That was my juniors growing up, and I had a lot of good memories with my mates there. So it would have been nice, but it wasn't the case.
Yeah, Manly then came knocking, so it's the arch rivals, and I'm a Para fan, so you obviously grow up being told to hate Manly. So interested to see how those conversations went from going to Parramatta over to Manly, and what it was like, because that was basically your first senior sort of contract, I'm imagining, you signed. So probably would have been a bit surreal as well at the same time.
Yeah, it was surreal. My dad was a Manly fan growing up, so it felt a bit strange going to the club that I supported because of him growing up, So, but they come knocking on the door, and as I mentioned before, I had that ACL injury when I was 18 in that trial match, and I was on the tools at the time as well. I was doing my trade, and Parramatta only offered, part-time again. So I would have been still slugging away on the tools, which was okay because I did enjoy it. It matured me as a young bloke, and I really think that was a big part into me, moving forward in my career was getting on the tools and doing the hard yards there. But Manly offered full time. It's top 25 back then, and they offered a full time role and under Des, and they had some success. The year before, I think the grand final they may have won, and I was just looking at it going, I'd love to learn. Matty Orford I looked up to when I was a young fella, so he was there, and I loved the idea of going and working and learning under him, and having a guy like Des being the coach. And I was just lucky that Noel Cleal, the recruitment officer at the time, he obviously watched me for quite some time at Para, and it was good to get the opportunity.
What was Des like as a coach? We hear all the stories come out about him, and what he's like as a coach can be a bit crazy at stages, and
Yeah,
footy nerd. What's he like?
yeah, he's crazy. That's for sure. Desi, he's full on, mate. He he's very intense. He demands, you to work hard and rock up with a good attitude, as you should. And he leaves no stone unturned. He will give you every opportunity to not only become a better footballer but win a competition. And the writing's on the wall with Desi. He has been in many grand finals. He has taken teams from bottom to top, and he created that team to Manly to what they were to go on and win a couple of grand finals there. So he's very intense character, Desi, but he's one of those types of coaches that if you work hard for him, and he'll have your back no matter what, and he won't let you hang out to dry if you the media is on top of you, or he'll take the brunt for you. So he's a coach that you want to play for ultimately, and that's why I enjoyed playing under him so much. He improved me as a footballer, and he made me in the footballer I was.
Yeah. One of the first memories that points out to me and sticks out in my head about yourself is in that Manly career for yourself, that game against the Bunnies, and you kicked the 2 field goals. And I just remember, I remember him visibly about sort of very good quality field goals as well at the time. How much thought goes into it from yourself when you're setting up for those? Is it for the moment things, or is it something in the back of your mind? You've got your forwards going, certain spots going, I need to get the ball to this part of the field to then get this field goal where I want it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Obviously, when it depends where you're getting the footy. If you're getting the footy in your own half, you're just trying to work hard to get those meters and put yourself in a position. And once you sort of get around that position, then you got to start to think, where would I like to put the play the ball in regards to my kick? What angle do I feel is going to be better? You start to pan across the defensive line and see where those guys are in position, because you know who's going to try and come out and get you or whatnot. So I generally like to play the ball sort of on the left post or just outside the left post, so I could open it up and get a free rein. But either side didn't really matter, as long as you sort of were in a better position, in a decent position to give you enough space, and allow yourself to get off the ruck and avoid those markers as the best you can. And was good. So yeah, a little bit of thought. You sometimes you have to come off the cuff. If you got a quick play the ball, or there's a really slow play the ball and you can't go off that play the ball, then you're going to have to dig one in. But if the play of the ball is good and you might not be in the position that you want to be, you have to go. So sometimes it's off the cuff, sometimes it's very planned. It just depends also what time of the game it is as well, whether they know it's coming or they don't. So there's different factors that come into it, but most of the time you like to plan where you want the play the ball to be.
Was there a certain player you like to go off then? We know these days they talk about getting that quick play the ball that's vital and key. Was there a certain player you like to go, you know what, you're taking this on the fall so that I can get my shot away?
Yeah, at the Dogs, Big Sam Cassiano was good for a quick
Yeah.
play the ball. So whenever we needed that quick one, Big Sammy would dive one in. So back at Manly in the early stages, I think Chocky Watmow was pretty good at getting a quick play of the
Oof.
ball as well. He was strong in a way. So yeah, it was funny. I think I can't remember who was playing the ball in that Rabbitohs game. I do know it was a pretty pretty cool experience kicking the 2 field goals for the first time. I didn't expect to do that. You never expect to kick 2 in the one game. Possibly you might have to kick 1, but to do that was pretty good because I know South sort of scraped their way back into the game and went ahead, and it would have been disappointing if we lost that game because I think we deserved it a little bit more, and we ultimately got there, which was good.
You had Brookie in party mode, and you've done that a few times in your career with different stadiums. But just the last thing, as I mentioned, you were known as a sharpshooter with not just the field goals, but with your boot conversions, things like that. How much effort and did you put into it at training for those field goals? It looks like it's not something that just comes naturally. Like you have to put in the work and really
Yeah.
grind at it. It feels like.
Yeah, well, my goal kicking, I put in a lot of work. I
Who was your
you know,
coach?
I
Was it Darryl Halligan or?
Yeah, Chook was my
Yeah.
coach at the Bulldogs. At Manly, well, I wasn't kicking at Manly because Jamie Lyon was kicking. So yeah, I was always a goal kicker coming through. So I was kind of self taught on my own. I spent a bit of time after school down at the local park out in Campbelltown there, and we'll just kick the ball until dark, off the tee, and it was something I enjoyed doing. I'd kick for the Cabramatta in the time, but then when I went to Manly in first grade, I was Jamie Lyon was kicking goals there, and then even when I went over to the Bulldogs at the start, Stevie Turner was kicking the goals, and then I think the year after, in 12 when I was injured, we'll probably get into it for most of the year. Chrissy Inu was kicking, so I didn't really come into kicking into grade until probably 2013 or 14. So, but I was always practicing no matter what because I knew if Jamie or someone went down, then I was next in line. But funnily enough, with the field goals though, I didn't really spend a whole heap of time on practicing them at training. We might do one set at the end of captain's run where we're working towards that game related 1-pointer, and I'd kick it, and yeah, generally I'd get it. But if I'd spray it, it is what it is. I'd leave it. I didn't want to really put too much pressure on myself because I knew out on the field it had come naturally, which was pretty good. And but with the goal kicking, I did spend a lot of time practicing that, and I really enjoyed those responsibilities, I guess you'd say, for being a goal kicker and trying to add the 2 points onto a try or golden point if you needed a conversion. I really enjoyed that.
Just naturally talented. I wish I had those natural talents.
Oh,
That was
might have been my
fantastic.
soccer. Might have been my soccer days back in the day. I started out, playing soccer before footy, so I reckon that put me in good stead.
Yeah, that's a good little segue. I wanted to ask you one final question about the junior sort of side of things. And growing up, were you one of those kids that were footy mad and you always had your mind set on, I want to play footy when I grow up, I want to play NRL? Or was it something that sort of has grown onto you throughout as you were getting older?
Yeah, well, it was sort of. I went back and forth with the soccer and footy for a little bit. Under sixes, I was soccer. 7/8s, I was footy. Nines, I went back to soccer, and then tens is where I sort of made the decision to go with footy because a lot of my mates did the same thing at primary school. So, and then from then, I was always mad about footy and soccer. I was just mad about sports, But when it sort of got a bit serious for me, wanting to do that, in the future was around the under 10 mark. Yeah.
So 2014 comes about and you signed a multi-year deal with the Bulldogs. And I'll tell you what, as a para junior, you've gone to the two most hated clubs by the girls. So you've done well there.
Yeah.
Just I want to know the impact that the Bulldogs has had on your career because as an outsider, and before I even asked you earlier about that, it felt like the Bulldogs have had a lot to do with your career and how you've grown as a person. I just want to know what that because I know they're known as a family club, and a lot of people say they've sort of grown away from that. But at the time, they were probably the envy of a lot of clubs with how they did things.
Hmm. Yep. No, I agree. What I will say is when I sat down with Toddy Greenberg and Kev Moore, who was the coach at the time, and they told me about the history and being the family club and everything like that, and I just enjoyed the fact of what they had to say and how they sort of embraced me and where they saw me at their club and in the future, and I could really feel a lot of genuine. I just felt a genuine connection with those guys, and um, but I've got to owe a lot to Desi. He had me at Manly and he had me at the Bulldogs, so he moulded me into the player I was, and I owe a lot to him. At the end of the day, yeah.
Yep. So 2014 comes around, and it's the grand final. I know it wasn't the result you guys wanted, but I think the main talking point here, for your personal point of view, is that you were named co-captain because Michael Ennis was down through injury, which was unfortunate. I think he was a massive loss on the day as well to the Bulldogs
Yeah.
and the chances. I think he was the heart and soul of that club at the time, and it must have been a surreal moment and a special moment for yourself to be running out to a grand final, packed house, ANZ Stadium back in the day, what it was called, and just your emotions for that day. Did you change anything to how you prepared because you were the co-captain, or you were took it in your stride and it just came naturally for you?
No, to be honest with you, my role for the team didn't change. I was, still the conductor out there. I was the general. I was the coach on the field. I had to steer the boys around, so that didn't change at all. Um, in regards to off the field, I wasn't a huge talker in comparisons to your Mickey Ennis's or your James Graham's. So I kind of let James do a lot of that stuff.
Could
I
you
was
understand
co-captain.
whenever James was talking though?
No, absolutely not. I'd just nod my head. We'd all just nod our heads, and yeah, we'd cop a lot of spit in the process. But yeah, James is very passionate, so he enjoys that side of being the football player he is. He leads by his words and his actions. So I guess both of us being the captain, James was going to have time off the field, so I was there to be the captain whilst he was off as well. So yeah, I was playing that 80 minutes that Mick would usually. We didn't really have that co-captain because Mick was there for the 80 minutes, but. No, I really enjoyed the week. It was a bit clouded by injury, which was disappointing to a few of us. We lost Mick. Myself, I hobbled into that grand final from the Manly game 2 weeks prior. Joshy Reynolds, his shoulder was pretty crook, but we finished seventh leading into the finals, and that's what happens when you finish so low. Is you got to go back to back to back. 3 games to get to the grand final, and 3 tough games. That's why you don't see too many guys winning it from down there. So we put ourselves in every position to possibly win that GF, and unfortunately for us, South were too good on the day, and they kicked on. I think for most of the game it was 6-all, and then 51st minute or 50th minute they score and they ran away with it, which was a bit disappointing, but it is what it is.
Yeah. That was the game. Obviously, Sam Burgess takes that first hit up and the collision with Graham. Was there much talk about Sam Burgess's condition throughout that game? And you could see on the big screen how much at the start he was struggling. Then he just sort of took his hard concrete pills and just went
Yeah.
possessed.
Yeah, I actually spoke about this today. Somebody asked me, was that the game that Sam Burgess broke his cheekbone? I said, yeah. And, I was hoping he went straight off after that first tackle. I think we all were.
Well, we talked.
But
I just said before, Michael Ennis is the heart and soul of the Dogs at the time. That was
yeah,
Burgess for South, so it would have been massive.
100%. Yeah, it would have been huge, mate. And, he ran off and it was looking like he was going to go off because he ran out the back and he was pretty concerned about it. But, Sam being the competitor and the tough guy that he is, he stayed on. And, we didn't really speak about it because, it's not so much of a target there. If you've got a shoulder or their sore knee, you can sort of target them. But, yeah, he didn't really, we didn't really speak too much about it, to be honest with you, because he just soldiered on. And as I said, mate, they were too good. They got a kick start in the 50th minute and they just ran away with it. And it was well deserved from them. It was disappointing from us. And, yeah, it's one that'll sit with us and that'll hurt for quite some time.
Yeah, I don't want to ask too many questions about it because it still hurts. It's never easy to lose a grand final in whatever league you play in or whatever division you play in. It always sucks. But one player
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
wanted to quickly ask you about, and I know I want to ask you this because being a halfback, a playmaker yourself, it's always a target. But Greg Inglis, obviously a freak and one of the best we've ever seen grace the footy field. How much preparation for yourself goes into things when you're versing a talent like that on the big stage, knowing this guy is probably going to have quite the influence on if South Sydney can win this or not.
In regards to semi,
In regards to Greg Inglis.
oh, Greg Inglis, yeah. So, yeah, a fair bit goes into the preparations to try and limit, Greg's influence on the game, and yeah, he was very, very talented player. He had a good way of getting himself into the game in big moments. So, we tried our best with the game plan that we had. And like I keep referring back to, it was neck and neck until the 50th minute mark, and it was 6-all, and the scoreline is what it is. And you look back at it now and you go, oh, the South have dominated that grand final, but those last 25, 30 minutes is where they ran away with it, and they just got a lot of momentum, and everything went their way. And but yeah, a guy like Greg Inglis, we had to really prepare hard for not only Greg, but the entire team at the time was going super well. All the Burgess boys were killing it. Adam Reynolds was really good. He had a really great kicking game that year. Luke Keary was playing awesome at 5'8". Dylan Walker might have been his debut year or second year. He was killing it. They had a strong team across the park, and led by Sammy Burgess and Greg Inglis. It was it was a tough game and a hard team to beat.
Yeah, so you had a taste of the captaincy there, and then I want to talk fast forward a little bit to the Knights, 2016, 2017, and you were thrown immediately into a trio co-captaincy with Tarek Sims and Jeremy Smith as well. I've spoken about this with a couple of players as well who was in a similar situation. How did it feel going to a new club, being the new guy sort of in the group and being thrown into that leadership straight away? Did it sit comfortably with you, or was it something you were hesitant about?
Um, Look, we had a pretty. Well, at the time, I think the squad was quite still, experienced before they started to clean out. But I was the type of guy that sort of wanted to earn my stripes and, I guess, prove myself to be, deserving of that. I guess, um, going to a new club and getting thrown a co-captaincy straight away. I was proud of it for sure, and I took the role on with both hands. But yeah, I was probably a little bit embarrassed in a way because I like to earn my stripes, as I said, and work hard. And then I think the following year, the playing group voted, and that's when they voted for me to get the captaincy in 2017. So that I felt as though that was much more rewarding than the one before. But I still enjoyed it and was very honoured to do so alongside Jeremy Smith and Tarek Sims. Two good guys of the NRL. So yeah, it was something I was proud of. But the following year was the one I sort of felt a bit better because it was voted by your peers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in 2017. You mentioned you're the sole captain, but it would have seemed like an ideal situation would have been love and life. But then, unfortunately, after bye, I think it was round 7, only one win there, and the coach decides you're one of the key reasons to that, and he actually dropped you to New South Wales Cup. And I know I read a media article today, just doing a bit of research, and I know you said, I hope you
Yeah.
don't mind me bringing it up, but it felt like at the time, looking back, it was a bit of a toxic environment and things like that. It wasn't ideal. What was that like to be the captain and then all of a sudden, because we don't see that in the modern game, we don't see the captain being the scapegoat and being dropped. That's crazy to think about. What was it like to live in that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy time, to be honest with you, mate. I was scratching my head, and I just had to be a man about it and accept that that was the way that the coach was going at the time. And did I agree with it? No, but I just had to accept it and move on. Um, so that's what I did, and then yeah, it sort of stayed that way for a little bit longer, and then I come back into the side at the end of the year and played a few games, and then yeah, it was kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. It was a bit of a weird situation and a funny one, but yeah, it was had to suck it up and move on, and yeah, it was definitely different.
Yeah, and then me personally, I wouldn't be able to wait to get out of the joint with that sort of treatment, and I think it was pretty unfair at the time. I don't think you were in that bad a form at all, and probably one of the key reasons they actually won that game that they did win. But
Yeah.
2018, you switched over to the Sharks for a brief time, and then a mid-season switch to Manly. Talk to us about, because we're seeing it a lot this year, and we saw it a lot last year.
Yeah.
What's that period like with that mid-season switch going from one club to another? How does it sort of transpire? Is it all through managers and they come to you, you go, oh, I wouldn't mind going back to Manly. It felt like my home club and going back to them would be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess when I left Newcastle, there was an opportunity. My manager had told me that Manly was a possibility, and then I think Jackson Hastings was there at the time, and yeah, apparently he was leaving, and they just had to sort out some cap stuff, so that wasn't available straight away. And then Sharks were there to come down, and there was a spot there available to know back up to Chad, and I think Moiser was there at 6. So I was sort of backing up there, but by that stage I kind of had to get out of Newcastle because it was pretty tough, and um, tough place to be around at the time though. So yeah, went down to
Is it
Cronulla, and
is
that's
it
where I was.
is Newcastle as
Sorry.
footy crazy as everyone talks about? They
Yeah,
say
it's
that
unreal.
city just lives and breathes it.
Lives and breathes it, mate, and I can't speak highly enough for the fans up there. They were awesome. Hey, they were really good. Even though we were getting beat, there was still 15, 20,000 there at games up there, and they're very passionate. And it's hard to see them go through quite a while now that the team hasn't done so well. But hopefully for the fans there and the game, that Newcastle can start to rise and get up there, because definitely footy crazy up there, and it's a great place, mate. Newcastle, I really enjoyed my time living up there. It was unreal. But then yeah, I shot back down to Cronulla for a bit, and I knew the future there was only sort of a 12-month contract, so I had to sort of keep my options open, because Fleno let me know that Kyle was sort of in an up and comer, moving forward after that 12-month period. So I kind of knew where I stood, which I appreciated that from Fleno. He was upfront and honest with me, which was awesome. And then the Manly stuff was still happening in the background, so that became available, and that's when I made the switch, because I still had the rest of 18 and then 19 as well, so I could sort of commit to that. And yeah, that's what happened there.
Yeah, so before I touch on the rep stuff, then obviously 2019, you already said it before yourself that was the year that cruelly by a knee injury ended the career for yourself. And I want to know if there was plans for yourself moving forward. Was it in an ideal situation, was it to stay in the NRL, or was it a Super League sort of move you would have been looking at? You
Yeah,
strike someone who probably loves to stay here in Australia, but would have been liking to just have more opportunities, because I just feel like, as you were just speaking about, then the last couple of years, just a lot of shit sort of happened, to put it politely, and it would have been nice for you to
yeah.
end in a much better way.
No, you're right, mate. I look back now, and it's sort of, especially coming off those years at the Dogs, and then going up to Newey and starting fresh up there, and then it's sort of diving back down. And the last couple of years is pretty disappointing way to sort of go out and finish. And I just felt as though, yeah, it was pretty frustrating. And as you said, mate, shitty time, to be honest with you. And then coming to grips with having to retire early because of injuries, just at the time, it was a decision that was made for me. So it was easier that way. It wasn't like, did I retire too early? Because, I think I could still go. I couldn't keep going at the time. So, um, but yeah, I did plan to go to play on. I had a contract over it with the Rhinos over in the Super League ready to go. So I was going to continue to go over there, and finish off. It was something I wanted to do, was go over there and just enjoy a couple, as a lot of boys do.
Yeah.
Go over there. We're yet to have kids at that stage, and um,
You would
um,
have had some brownie
yeah.
points then. You would have taken the missus to Europe, and she would have
Well,
been
that's
loving
right,
life.
mate. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it would have been a good opportunity for us to travel, but it wasn't to be,
Yeah.
and that's where she finished.
Yeah, and then we're not ending there, guys. We're not ending on a somber note. Then the rep footy starts, and city country is one thing I want to talk to you about because I want to know what it is actually like. Because we hear the commentators and that bag it out a lot at the time when it was around saying we don't need it. It's not really an Origin trial. I want to know as a player who actually played that fixture, what it actually felt like for yourself. Did you feel like it was a genuine Origin shootout, or did you feel like, oh, I'm getting a rep jersey, but I don't feel like anyone really cares about it? Because I know a lot of people watched it and really liked it.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. I was 7 games into my NRL career and I got chosen. So I felt as though this is sort of an opportunity that I should be very serious about, and I was, But I felt like it was like that when I was in there. All the older boys, like this was what 2010. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I felt as though it was a very serious game, and it was city country, and yeah, probably not the hatred that New South Wales and Queensland have,
Yeah.
obviously, but it still definitely felt like it was a game or a dress rehearsal for that New South Wales team. So I enjoyed it.
Who
It
was the
was something that
coach?
I'm proud of. Coach at the time was,
Was
I
it
think,
Daly? Was it Laurie? Or Freddie, mate?
nah, he was country. I think
Oh
Freddie
yeah,
might have
sorry,
been
Laurie was
City.
country. Yeah, Freddie.
I
Yeah.
think Freddie might have been City. Hey,
And then you
at the
got the
time,
Roosters
yeah.
gig. Yeah.
Hey,
Then you got the Roosters gig, I think,
then he
shortly
got
after
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the go. And then I think I made the squad again in 13. But I had to. I went into camp and then I left camp a couple of days in because the knee was a bit under the pump. So um, yeah, no, I enjoyed it, mate. City Country was sick, and it was something that I'm very proud of. I got the opportunity to represent City.
You mentioned you did that when you were quite young, so I'm guessing it was quite daunting being in that camp with some of those senior players that you were talking about. What was camp life like for you being young and going into that environment?
Yeah, 100%. It was daunting. It was yeah, like this little mouse walking into training and saying g'day to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was only fresh on the scene in the NRL, so to go up with all these established guys and it was pretty cool. But I did learn a lot. I come out of that camp and I learned, because the guys, as I said, took it pretty professionally and pretty serious, and I learned a lot of professionalism out of that camp from the other guys from other clubs. So I took a lot out of it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the big one, New South Wales Blues Origin. You got to play 6 games, as I mentioned, 2014 to 2015. I want to talk to you about that game. I'm pretty sure it was game two, 2014, I believe. So it was a great year personally
Yeah,
for you. You had the grand final as well. I was there. I was there that night with my mate. We were sitting high up in the nosebleeds. The only tickets we could get at the time. We just had a feeling. We go, this is the year the dynasty's over. We've got this. And I believe at the time you and Josh Reynolds was playing quite well. So we were pretty confident with the pairing as well. I know that I think it was at the time Pearson, Maloney, I think were both injured, I believe, and
yeah.
got you guys
So
pretty well.
what happened was, and I've got to thank um, the the girl in the yellow dress was the one that Piercy got in trouble with at the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sorry, but yeah,
So he got I think suspended or ruled out, and then James was his 5'8", so I think
yeah.
James automatically got ruled out. I don't think he was injured, but then Laurie went with the combination of myself and Josh because we were playing pretty well at the Dogs, and I think that's what he was big on with combinations at the time.
Yeah, and I know you got quite a good relationship with Josh. I've seen that obviously with your post and that as well, with Josh retiring, and you guys have probably remained quite close mates as well. Was it quite? I want to. I'll finish off my story first, but it was. So I
Yep.
was up in the nosebleed, and you scored that try with not long to go at all. It looked like it was going to be one of those Queensland great escapes once again, but this time it was
Yeah.
us. It was Wales that got it done, and it was yourself over. And I've never heard and felt a stadium go berserk like it. And I know a lot of players say they just zone out and you can't really hear the crowd or anything like that. But I just want to know in that situation when that happened, what was your emotions like? Could you hear and feel the crowd? Because I almost felt like it was almost impossible to not.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to say though, I at the time I didn't really feel it.
Yeah.
It was just because what had happened, and then it just happened all so fast. I'd love to go back and just put it into slow-mo and just do it and embrace it. But as soon as I put it down and then I looked up and I was at the wrong end of the Bletchley Blues were up the other end, so I thought they were there, and I put the finger up, and it was the Queenslanders. So I was like, "Oh damn!" And then knowing that I had a kick to come, I tried to just relax and not carry on too much because if I had a scored and missed a kick 4-4, never know what could have happened. So um, it happened very fast. I'm sure I remember the roar, but it's hard to remember, you know, feeling that there. But yeah, it was surreal. It was unreal. Like looking back at it now and what we were able to achieve against that great Queensland team was pretty special.
Yeah, I told you off there, but I remember it, and I'll always remember it. It was crazy to be in. It was like a wave hit you in the face.
I,
I loved it. Best atmosphere I've ever been involved with.
yeah, I think because I had my mates sitting with my nan and pop at the time, and I think they just went back. Just went to get a couple more beers, and then they were sort of creeping through the crowd and with like 2 trays of beers, and then I went over, so them beers just went everywhere. Like they threw them up, and the Nan and Pop got sprayed with bloody beer, and it was pretty cool because then Mum and Dad and my wife and her mum and were over on the other side, and Nan and Pop were with my brother and my brother's wife. So it was pretty funny. Nan and Pop, yeah, they smelt like a lot of beer by the at the end of the game, but even when you see videos of the crowd and how they reacted, it was pretty special. To not only get that opportunity, I never thought it had come because Piercy had been there for a long time, and I just thought that was the way they were going to go continuously, and I was just focused coming back after that injury season in 12, where I missed most of the year, and the grand final in 12, just to get back on the paddock and show the Bulldogs some faith. And my name got tossed up for Origin. I didn't even still believe it. And then Laurie rang me and it was an opportunity and I couldn't believe it. And then to go in and do what we were able to do as a team and to get over the try line, that's a memory that no one will ever be able to take off me. And something that I'll be pretty proud of to tell the. When I'm a bit older. So, she was a special one.
Was there any stories behind that with Laurie's call? Because we always hear players say they either ignore calls, they think it's a prank, things like that. Was it anything there with you, or it was just straightforward? You knew Laurie straight away, and I'm picking this up, and I know what this is about.
Well, I knew that that night it was getting chosen on the Sunday night. Oh, sorry, they'd ring you and then it'd get named on the Monday, but they'd make the phone calls on the Sunday night. I remember leaving the airport because we come home from New Zealand. We played the Warriors there the Saturday night maybe, and we flew back on the Sunday. And I remember Jimmy Dimmick. And at this stage, I had no thought of bloody state of origin or anything. And Jimmy Dimmick, our assistant coach, looked at me and goes, state of Blues, state of origin. I went, what are you talking about, mate? You're off your head. Blah, blah. So I've gone home and then knowing that, they picked the side or ring the players at night. So I'm thinking, oh, whatever, watching TV with the missus and that. And Grubby rang me, Joshy rang me and said, mate, have you heard anything, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, mate, no. He goes, I said, have you? And he goes, yeah, I'm in. I said, oh, that's great, mate. Good stuff. He goes, but you haven't heard anything? And I was like, no, not yet, man. He goes, all right, ring me if you hear anything. Surely you'll get a
He
call. I'm
knew,
like,
he
oh, I don't know.
knew.
Yeah, probably. And then, literally probably 20 minutes later or something, I got the phone call and it was a number I didn't know. And I got the phone and I tilted it to the missus and she's like, you picked that up. And I was like, right, boom. Hey, mate, Laurie Daly, how you going? I was like, oh, are you kidding, And then it was just pretty holding back the tears there and then got off the phone to him. He said, yeah, you're in, mate. Blah, blah, blah. We'll see you tomorrow morning first thing. And I was like, oh, I still couldn't believe it. And then I spoke to my parents and got pretty emotional. And then even the drive in, like, meeting what we were saying before about the city and country and what it was like going into camp. And I'd been around for a little bit now and, a few seasons in the NRL, but I was still pretty surreal moment because a lot of the guys at New South Wales had been there for a while, and they'd endured quite a little bit of pain. So you had Gallons, your Birds, Hoffmans, Lewis's, Bo Scotts, Robbie Farrers. Like they had a core group there, and for a new half, especially a halfback to go in, a young fella, it was pretty daunting. But they were awesome. They embraced me, and it took me not much time at all to get in there and feel right at home. So it was good.
I don't think there's many more deserving players to reach that level than yourself and what you've been through with your career and things like that. I think it was well deserved, and I'm glad you got to reach that level in your footy career and actually play in that sort of environment. I know with all the injuries and that, there would have been times where you probably thought, "Oh, crap, I'm never going to see these days." But I'm glad you
Thanks,
did. And
mate. Yeah,
I think I
thank you.
started with this channel and pages. I like to sort of help out the kids out there and give them little tips and that where I can. And whenever they do it,
Yep.
watch the. I wanted to ask your question for the kids around this situation where you picked to verse this star-studded Queensland team that wasn't getting beat in the last 8 years or so. When you got the phone call, and I've got no doubt I know what your answer is going to be because the form you and Josh are in, I reckon you both just thought, you know what, we're going to get these dogs. We're going to get them. It's our year to break this streak. Is that tell us your mindset when you do get that? Because I know, as you said, it was emotional at the start, and then you click in your gear, go, you know what, I'm about to verse players like Smith, Thurston, Cronk, the like, Billy Slater. This is a team that has been beaten in a long time. We've got to get into this.
Yeah. And you're right. Like it went from a feeling of, emotional feeling, and then it went straight to righto. There's an opportunity for us to do something special here. We walked into the room because we roomed together. As soon as we put the bags down, we looked at each other and we go, "Yeah, we could do something special here, man. This is an opportunity. Let's take advantage of this. We're in a good position." So from then on in camp, we ripped in and we tried really hard to do our best for the team. And although because there was a lot of pressure on halves, and there still is on halves in the Blues side, and especially me, it was very questioned my selection anyway. So I had a lot of pressure there. Even the New South Wales greats were questioning my selection, and I think even at the time Gow might have questioned it on the radio, and then we went into camp together, and it was funny. I think James was on camp 3, might have hit Gow up and said, "Oh, you're still questioning his selection now, Gow?" And yeah, we all had a laugh about it on the piss and that. So that was funny, but yeah, it was a good opportunity for us. We had nothing to lose. We're going in there, and it was something that we could, hold together between the two of us because we we were playing some good footy for the Dogs, and it was a good opportunity for us to transition that into the Blues side with the teammates. So, but in regards to the Queensland team, we knew what we were coming up against, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time. Well, I didn't spend a whole lot of time, trying to think about who I was playing. To be honest with you, yes, we did video and whatnot, but I more focused on my role for the team, and I knew if I could get my role right, which was Laurie told me it was to be there and be very calm and get the boys around because he felt as though a couple of years, previously it was quite frantic, and I was a pretty laid back kind of player, and my strengths were steering the boys around the panic and kicking to corners and doing those sort of things. And back then, earlier in my career, until I sort of started to get more injuries in the back end, but earlier on in my career, I believe I was a pretty strong defender, so I could hold my own, and those are probably the 3 main reasons why I got chosen, and I was able to, help the side get over the line, which was good.
I want to, and just for the kids, I think the big thing I'm taking out of there, the big talking point, just your mindset when you're about to play and things like that, no matter who you verse. And as I said, back in the day when I was a Wendy trainer, I used to hate versing Cabra. There was just that mind frame you needed to switch. It's a challenge that you embrace and you go, you know what, this could be the day that changes my life. If you want to be a footy player, all you need is that one game and the right person's there or something, and all of a sudden they've seen you tackle that guy that you're scared of or things like that, or make that run. And that's all it takes. So,
and the thing is, it's a lot of people, they think about they worry about the things they can't control. You know what I mean? What you can control is yourself and your own actions, and that's what I try to do during the camp. What can I do that best for this team? I'm not worried about what that Thurston or what Smith or to have an impact on what I can do in for my team. I just worried about myself and focused on getting myself right. And once you do that, the rest will come off it. The rest will handle itself. Natural instinct will take over. So, yeah, just I guess that's my advice to young guys that are coming through. Just work hard and worry about yourself and get yourself right, and don't worry about the things that you can't control, because you keep worrying about those things, you're going to stay where you're at.
Yeah. Look, one thing I want to bring up before I get into some rapid fire questions with you, and for me, this sums you up. It's I know you on the field how good of a player you were, but off the field, and I feel like it'd be rude for me not to ask this. And if you don't want to talk too much about it, I understand why. But in
Yep.
2017, you take young, beautiful Hannah to her former, who reached out to you at the time, who wasn't doing too well at all. She reached out to you, and you were not famously, but it was in the papers and the magazines about taking her to the formal. I was want to know, did she reach out to you at that time, asking you? Is that the right part of the story? And then I also want to know, on a bit more of a fun side of it, how was it being back at a high school environment?
Yeah. Yeah. So just quickly, Hannah was one of the names I had on my kicking tee, because I used to write in the name of a sick kid on my kicking tee, because we had a bit of airtime, more airtime than others. Skull kickers. That's what I was lying in bed one night, and I was just trying to think of ways I can help the kids, and I was staring at the ceiling, and I went, write a name on the kicking tee. Boom. So I then I was at the Bulldogs at the time, and I went to the Bulldogs and had a chat with the community. I said, "Is this possible? Can we sort this out?" She's like, "Yep, leave it with me." And then, yeah, fast forward, I had Hannah on my kicking tee. She come to the game. She was recovering at the time. And then we like to stay in contact with the kids and their families, and they let us know, a few months later, or what it was, that she'd fully recovered, and which was unreal, great news. And then might have been, it was because 16, I'm pretty sure I did that with her. And then in 2017, early in 17, her mum contacted the club and just said, "Hey, can you let Trent know that Hannah's not doing too well?" I just thought he'd like to know, because he likes to stay in contact and updated with how the kids are. And the community, Sally, the community lady at the Knights there, let me know, and I was just devastated. I was like, "You're kidding?" Blah blah blah. She only had so many months to live, and I was like, "Oh my god." The school was bringing her formal forward, and I said to Sal, I said, well, if she doesn't have anyone to, like, a date or anything, like, can I go to the formal with her? Like, just see, I'd love to go with her. Got back to Sal's mum, and then her mum got back and said, it'd be great, she'd love to. So that was where that come from. And yeah, it was pretty, put a lot of things into perspective, because on the day of the funeral, I went round to Hannah's house, and she looked beautiful. Yeah, she was gorgeous. And she needed steroid injections just to get off the couch, and I was just like, but she had the biggest smile on her face, and I couldn't, like, here I am worrying about a bad day at training, or, some ridiculously, thing that I'd be worrying about. And then you've got a young 14-year-old girl there that's needing steroid injections to get off the couch and go to a formal. You know what I mean? I'm just like, pull your head in, mate. Like, what are you worrying about? So, put a lot of things into perspective. And then, yeah, we had a great time. We drove to the funeral in one of the classic cars that she loved, classic American car, I believe it was. And yeah, it was awesome. We got out. The whole school was waiting for her as we arrived. We hopped out. She got the massive cheer that she deserved, and we went in there and we had a good time. It was a little bit different for me. I'd been a while since I've been to a formal, but I had a great time. We cut the cake, and yeah, she was. You couldn't take the smile off her face, mate. Everyone there was very supportive of her, and um, yeah, we had a really good time. And then, yeah, unfortunately, not long after that, Hannah had passed away, which was sad. And yeah, really hit the community in Newcastle. And but what I remember of Hannah is she was just a fun, bubbly, happy young girl, and no matter what was coming and what she knew, it didn't change the way she was. And I still tell people today that that was a big part in my career, and realised how grateful I am for what I have, and put a lot of stuff into perspective for myself.
Yeah, actually, honestly, it makes you feel a bit emotional even just hearing it back, the story. And I think it goes to show just the quality of yourself as well. I'm not trying to piss in your pocket here either, but I know you did have done and still do a lot off the field for the game and for people. And I reckon there's that much stuff that we could talk about that people probably don't know about that you've done and don't want the accolades for it. But I think that's just there. That's why I wanted to bring it up. It just shows what you're like as a person. And I think, as you said, it's bigger than the game, and you're more than happy to put yourself out there and do that. Where not just footy players, but I think people in general probably wouldn't do anything like that. They just sort of turn a blind eye, sadly. But
Yeah,
you're on the front foot with it, and massive credit to yourself. So,
appreciate it,
rapid
mate.
fire
Thank you.
questions now.
Yep.
No worries. Rapid fire questions now. I've got a few for you. I want to know the best sledge you heard, and also the best sledger. It might be the same person here.
Oh, the best sledge I heard. Oh, what was it? It was Will Chambers.
Oh, of course.
I think it might have been the Clemmer or someone. I'm trying to think what it was. Oh, might have been something about the missus or something, but I probably can't repeat it to be honest with you. But
That's
it
all
was a
right. That's
solid
all right.
sledge. It was a
Yeah.
solid
Well,
sledge, and he was good at those ones. Will he was yeah, yeah, it was something along those lines, but it was a good one. It was a cracker.
yeah. The next one is, and I know you grew up and played alongside a lot of talented players, but the most naturally gifted player you got to play with in your career.
Yeah, the most naturally gifted player I reckon I played alongside in the juniors. I'd have to say Hainsey was one of the big guys, but he was very talented. And but when I went to the Bulldogs, Benny Barber, he was he was one of those guys that at training would come last in a lot of the fitness drills, and then he'd be the weakest in the gym. But you get him out on the footy field, and he was just footy fit. He'd be here, there, everywhere. He'd do back-to-back plays as a fullback. He'd be on the ball in the defensive line. He was just a guy that was um, naturally gifted as a footy player. And at the moment, I'm out at Cobar, and I've been to Burke today just with the NRL doing some clinics out here with the schools for mental health and stuff. And then we have a bit of a run around with the kids. And tell you what, out at Burke, this is where you need to be looking for talent, mate. They're freaks, eh? They're quick, they're skillful, they're footy players. So yeah, and that's natural. If they have a bit of help,
Yeah.
a bit of training, and all this sort of stuff, man, there's no stopping them, mate. So yeah, he was just a naturally gifted footy player, Benny.
Were you there the year when he scored that try against the Storm? Oh no, he scored the try. He set it up, I think, for I think it was Jamos or Primos, one of
Jamos,
them.
yeah. So
Jamos.
I was at the Dogs, but I wasn't playing. I was injured that most of that year, but and that was the year that he won the Dalian, mate. That
Yeah,
try, I seen that the other day on socials. It was
ridiculous.
it was freakish, eh?
He was almost
Freakish
on the
how he
dead
got out.
ball line.
Yeah, he picked it up
It's
dead set
crazy.
like half a meter in, yeah, and then
Oh,
yeah, it was crazy.
ridiculous. What about the funniest player you played with? No doubt you got some stories back in camp life and things like that. Who's the funniest player?
Funniest player I played with. There's a lot of guys. I spent obviously most of my time at the Bulldogs, so there's a lot of characters there. James Graham was pretty funny. Mickey Ennis, believe it or not, was a character. You might see the serious side of Mickey, but behind the scenes, he was a prankster. Um, yeah, Corey Payne back in the day, Pumper Payne
Yeah,
at the Dogs was a very funny human, without trying to be.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, James Graham, he probably did like he was a prankster. I'm not too sure if you've heard this story before, but every away game it was Mick's birthday, so he made sure he had a cake sitting with him or brought out a cake at the restaurant, and Mick just knew it was coming. And even on the plane rides, the Booper would get into the hostess and say, "Mate, can you just say Mickey Ennis's birthday when we land?" So
That's
he had a birthday every second week when we're going away. So and that was yeah, James Graham was behind that. So funny
that
human.
is that's hilarious.
Yeah.
We used to do the same thing at school. We used to have a mate who used to go rob his birthday at every assembly. To go into the birthday shout outs, and it was
Yeah,
Rob's birthday
and,
every week. So
and they'd hate it, but there's nothing they could do about it because if they try to get get back, it just wouldn't work as good. But it wasn't as funny. And yeah, if you've seen the birthday cake coming out, Mick, you just see Mick just go, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it was a good one.
Last one, and you know what, you touched on this earlier, so I was like, you knew what questions were coming. One moment of your career you could go back and relive again if you could.
Yeah, yeah, the GF would be nice.
Yeah.
The GF would be nice. To get that win, I feel as though, I was lucky enough to have the State of Origin win, but the Premiership win would be pretty cool, and to go back and win that. But I'd like to think back in the day at Wenning Oval, mate. That I'd like to maybe not play that game.
Yeah.
But you
Things would have
never
been
know.
different.
It could have happened later on. It could have happened whenever. So I got dealt with the cards I did, and I had to adapt to that. But yeah, the grand final win would have been a nice one.
Last question, because I've taken a lot of your time, and I really appreciate the time and effort you put in for tonight.
That's
Post
all right.
footy life, just how things are going up that everyone, and how you are going on a personal level. I know, as you said, you had to retire early, would have been a bit tough for you, especially early on. But how you doing now and what you're involved with?
Yeah, I actually went back and I had about 6 months off. My wife was pregnant at the time I retired, and I was lucky enough to be around in a young fella's life for the first 3 months, which normally you don't get to do being at work. So I enjoyed that, and then I went back on the tools and finished my trade. Because I did about 3 years before footy back when I was 16, 17, 18, before I then went to, that's when I was at Parramatta. I was working and then training of an Arvo. So I went back and finished my trade. And um, yeah, now we've made the move up into enemy territory. I've brought the family up in a place called Yeppoon, which is sort of central Queensland on the coast of Rocky. And yeah, it's we're enjoying it. I'm still involved in the game. I'm doing stuff with the NRL at the moment, down the state of mind program and around the mental health, which is good. And I'm looking to get involved with the with footy again in the coaching. So that's on the brink of happening, and just bits and pieces. Yeah. So trying. It's been a stressful couple of months moving the family up, and I got nose surgery probably 11 weeks ago. So it's been a bit of a stressful time, but we're getting there.
If you're ever looking to get in the podcast game, you know to come and talk to. So always happy to come and
Absolutely.
be on the League of Inches team. But Trent, as I
Yeah.
said, I've asked for way too much of your time tonight. I know you've got to go off and probably get some dinner, get some tucker, and get some sleep before another big day. Oh, there you go.
We're
That was a
back.
bit weird. It dropped out. But yeah, as I was saying, I really appreciate your time and effort put in. It's been a few weeks in the making. You've always made sure it was going to happen. So I really appreciate that. So all the fans of League of Inches, definitely thank you. And as I said, yeah, it's good to hear that you're doing great at the moment, enjoying post-football life, family's healthy. And thanks once again for jumping on, Trent.
I appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally have a chat, and all the best with your little one coming along soon, mate. You get those rests while you can, because there's going to be some sleepless nights,
Yeah, I'll try to. Thank you.
eh?